The 911 call came in at 9:47 p.m. Dispatch logged it under suspicious individual, commercial property. The caller identified herself as Claire Ashford, chief executive of Ashford Capital Group, calling from the 14th floor of 318 West Adams Street in downtown Chicago. She told the dispatcher there was a man in the executive corridor who should not be there. She described him as male, approximately 40 years old, in a gray maintenance uniform. She said he had been seen near the filing room adjacent to the partner offices. She did not give his name. His name was on a badge clipped to his chest, right below the logo of Precision Facility Services, which was the cleaning contractor the building management company had used for 11 years. The name on the badge was Marcus. Claire Ashford had never read the badge. I was at the supply cart near the corridor intersection when I heard her on the phone. Not the words, not through a closed door. The register. 16 years working in situations where the thing that mattered was almost never the thing being said had made that register identifiable to me the way a specific sound in a specific machine is identifiable to someone who knows what the machine is supposed to sound like. I had heard that tone on pay phones and in precinct hallways and through apartment walls at 2 a.m. I knew it by the time she had said 3 words. I did not stop working. I finished the baseboard section I was on and moved to the next, working east to west the way the route required, because the route did not change because someone had decided I looked wrong in a hallway. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Officer T, Briggs, and Officer A, Leon came out of the elevator 9 minutes later. I knew the badge numbers 1142 and 1189 before I read them. Those 2 numbers had belonged to different officers back when I was still tracking badge assignments in the 4th District, which was more than 4 years ago now, longer in some ways than that. The officers who carried them now were young. Briggs was 28 or 29. Leon was a little older, mid-30s. Both of them had the focused posture of people who had been given a description and were still processing the room against it. I stood up from the baseboard and put the cloth on the cart. I did not move fast. Fast movements in a situation that is already running on assumption tend to confirm the assumption. Night cleaning crew, I said. Marcus Webb, Precision Facility Services, contracted through building management. Briggs asked for ID. I handed him my work badge and my Illinois driver's license at the same time, both at once, because that is what a person does when they have nothing to manage and want the person across from them to understand that quickly. Leon was looking at the supply cart, the mop bucket, the folded cloths, the bottles of solvent in the wire caddy, arranged by size. He was reading the room. I noted that without comment. Claire Ashford came from the direction of the partner offices with her phone still in her hand. She had the blazer on that she'd come in with at 7:18 that morning. I knew the time because I had been on the lobby level at 7:18, replacing the liner in the northeast waste bin near the revolving doors, and she had come through, without slowing for the security desk, the way people move through spaces they have decided are extensions of themselves. She looked at me, then at Briggs. He's with the cleaning company, she said, but I saw him near the filing room. I was on the east baseboard run, I said. The filing room is at the opposite end of the corridor. She looked at the statement the specific way certain people look at a statement they have already decided not to believe. Those offices contain confidential client documentation, she said. I have a responsibility to the assets in this building. Briggs asked if anything was disturbed or missing. She said she didn't know yet. She said she wanted the area walked. She said it again using different words. They did the walkthrough. I stood near the elevator bank and waited. I had worked this floor for 14 months, 3 nights a week. I had read the facility contract on my first day, front to back, appendices included, which is where the specific things always live, and I knew exactly which storage areas and cabinets the cleaning staff were authorized to access, and which we were not. I also knew the distance from the supply cart to the nearest partner office was 62 feet, because I had measured it with my stride on the second week, because measuring things was a habit I had never found a reason to stop. The walkthrough found nothing out of place. Briggs came back and told me directly. He returned my license and badge without editorializing, which I respected. Claire stood near the hallway with her arms crossed. She had run out of facts, but had not resolved the expression that came with them. You can go, she said. I finished the floor. Restrooms, break room, corridor east and west. Done by 11:17, 3 minutes ahead of schedule. I was in the service elevator when my phone buzzed once in my jacket pocket. A voice note. 11 seconds. Maya's voice, foggy with sleep she was almost certainly supposed to be in, said, "Dad, you didn't text goodnight. I'm documenting this." Then a small pause. Then, "Love you. Go home safe." I sent back a single audio message, 6 words. "I'm on my way. Sleep now." Officer Briggs was still in the lobby when I came down, finishing the call response log at the security desk. He looked up when the elevator opened. There was something in his face, not recognition, just the edge of it, the expression of someone who believes they have seen a face before and cannot locate where. He was too young to have seen it where it had been. He nodded. I nodded. I took the service exit out into November. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a 2-building complex on West 21st Street in Pilsen, about 4 miles southwest of the Loop. It was not a large space. What it was deliberate. The books on the shelf were organized by subject. The fire extinguisher on the kitchen wall had a paper tag on the pin with a date written in marker, checked the first Tuesday of every month for 4 years. On the refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like a small cardinal, was a photograph of a girl sitting in the grass with both fists full of clover and an expression of total concentration on her face. She had been 5 in the photograph. She was 9 now. Maya was at the kitchen table when I got home at 12:08. She was doing her impression of a person who had been asleep for some time, which was unconvincing given that she was sitting upright and had a pencil in her hand. The math worksheet in front of her was finished, which was the only reason I didn't say anything about the hour. The handwriting on the last 3 problems was slightly less precise than the rest, which was the exact point where fatigue had found her. I carried her to her room. She woke up enough to say Dad in the half-present way she had. That particular tone that was 9 parts sleep and 1 part certainty about where she was and who was there. "I'm here," I said. She was gone before I finished saying it. I sat at the kitchen table for a while with the light on. On the refrigerator door under the cardinal magnet, there was also a drawing Maya had brought home from school 3 weeks ago, a crayon picture on white paper, 2 figures in front of a building. Under the taller figure, she had written "My Dad" in careful block letters. She had given the figure a gray jacket and what were clearly supposed to be precise hands, both accurate observations. She had also drawn a small badge on the chest, and inside the badge, in letters so small she had to press hard to make them fit, she had written the word hero. I had not asked her to write that. I also had not asked her not to. In my jacket pocket on the hook by the door was the key to the metal box in the back of the hall closet. The box held 4 things. A service commendation certificate in a plastic sleeve. A photograph of 6 people in front of a precinct building in the winter, all of them younger than they had any right to look given what that year had been. A folded copy of Denise's handwriting on a piece of notebook paper. A grocery list from a Tuesday 4 years ago, the last piece of paper I had found that she had touched. And a badge. Not the Precision Facility Services badge I wore on my chest each shift. A different badge. Chicago Police Department. The number on it was not 1142 or 1189. It was a number that had been in the department's commendation records twice, and its disciplinary file 0 times across 16 years. I did not open the box that night. I rarely opened it. But I knew what was in it the way you know the weight of something you have carried a long time. The morning routine started at 5:30. Maya was up before the alarm, which she had inherited from me and which she complained about with a kind of resigned dignity, as though the body were a colleague who refused to be managed. She ate toast with peanut butter and apple slices, and between bites she told me she had a history presentation today, that she had practiced it 4 times in her room the night before, that her friend Jordan had given her a note saying she would be in the front row for moral support, and that she intended to be excellent. "You intend to be excellent," I said. She looked at me the way she looked at statements that she considered beneath the moment. "I'm going to be excellent," she said. "There's a difference." I dropped her at school at 7:35. She took her backpack from the back seat and held it by one strap, which was her habit, and she turned once before she went through the gate to look back at me the way she did every morning. A single direct look, no wave, just the acknowledgement that I was there, and she had confirmed it, and now she was going in. I waited until the gate closed before I pulled out. By 8:20, I was at the Ashford Capitol building for a day shift, filling in for a crew member who had called out. Day shifts were a different texture than nights. The building was full. The lobby ran on a low-grade controlled urgency that financial service companies seem to produce naturally, the way certain machines produce heat as a byproduct of something else entirely. My assignment was the lobby level and the 2 service floors below it. A floor polisher for the service corridor tile, standard passes, overlapping, slow enough to get an even finish without scorching the compound into the grout. I was in the service corridor at 9:45 when the elevator at the end of the hall opened and Claire Ashford stepped out. She was already looking at her phone. She passed through without turning her head left, and I was to her left. Then she stopped. A beat, and she turned. She looked at me for a moment with the expression of someone running one thing against another, checking a fact she hadn't planned to verify. She had the look of a woman who had spent 6 years in a business where the most expensive mistakes were the ones that started with an incomplete picture. "The police found nothing out of place," she said. "No," I said. She held eye contact for 2 seconds. 3. There was something working in her face that was not quite an apology and was not quite nothing. Then she turned and went back to the elevator, and the doors closed, and she was gone. I finished the corridor. I checked the oil level on the polisher before I put it away, the way the manual said to and the way most people skipped. In my jacket pocket was a note Maya had tucked in there last night while I was making dinner. She did this sometimes. The note said, "Hi, Dad. Today I am going to be excellent. You should also try. Draw a picture of your day when you get home if words feel hard." I kept it in my pocket for the rest of the shift. The building clock above the service corridor door ran 4 minutes fast. I had flagged it twice in maintenance requests. It had not been corrected. At 3:14 by the fast clock, which made it 3:10 by the actual time, I heard something from the direction of the lobby. A voice elevated and then caught. The specific quality of a conversation that has slipped its leash and been pulled back. I did not go to look. But I logged it the way I logged most things in any building I worked in, not a decision yet, just a fact added to the others, waiting to find out if it mattered. The polisher's cooling cycle finished. I signed out. The clock on the wall said 3:34. The actual time was 3:30. I had been 4 minutes ahead of that clock for 14 months, and I expected I would be 4 minutes ahead of it for as long as I worked here, which was a thing I had stopped thinking about in terms of how long. 3 days after the 911 call, Claire Ashford told the story at a board lunch. I knew this because Donna Reyes, who ran the building management office on the 8th floor and had been in that office for 11 years, told me when I came in for my Thursday afternoon shift. Donna was not the kind of person who repeated things lightly. She was the kind of person who repeated them when she thought the person they concerned had a right to know. Claire had told 3 board members and her head of HR that she had called the police on a cleaning crew member found near the executive offices. She had described it as exactly the kind of situation that made her concerned about the building's contractor vetting process. She had used the word lurking. I thanked Donna. I took my car to the service elevator. The word lurking. I had spent 16 years in rooms where the vocabulary used to describe a person was the first signal of how that person was going to be treated by everyone else present. I had watched that mechanism operate on people I knew and on people I didn't, and on people I'd been assigned to protect. I was not surprised by the word. I noted it, added it to the count. On Friday morning, I dropped Maya at school at 7:38. She had her history project under her arm, the one on the Chicago labor movement that she had been revising for 2 weeks. She had asked me twice to read it. I had read it both times. The second draft was considerably better than the first, and I told her so, which she accepted without the false modesty of a person who doesn't already know it. At the gate, she turned and looked at me. That same single look, confirming. "Dad," she said, "you know that thing you always say about how you can tell when a room is about to change?" I said yes. "I think my classroom is about to change," she said. In a good way. She said this with the complete calm of someone reporting a fact they have already verified internally and are now sharing for the record. Then she went through the gate. I sat in the car for a moment after it closed. The November light came in flat and pale through the windshield. I thought about what it meant to raise a child who had learned to read rooms. I thought about where she had learned it and whether that was a thing to be glad about. I decided it was. Then I pulled out and drove to the building. My assignment that Friday was the lobby level and the service corridor below it, the same rotation I'd been on since the day's shift coverage began. By 1:15, I was running the polisher on the east stretch of the service hall, working toward the utility alcove. The lobby above me was doing its usual midday volume. The foot traffic measurable by the sound patterns that came down through the ceiling, the elevator chimes, the particular rhythm of a busy reception desk. At 2:31, I came up from the service corridor to return equipment to the supply closet near the lobby security station. I had been in this lobby, across both shifts, for 14 months. The foot traffic had a pattern, and the pattern was readable once you had logged enough days of it. Most people who came through the revolving doors in the afternoon were returning from lunch. They moved with the forward momentum of people with a destination already in mind. They barely looked at the security desk before they showed their badge. The man who came through at 2:31 looked at the lobby the way someone looks at a problem they are solving. He was somewhere in his late 30s, carrying a slim leather portfolio and wearing a gray suit that was appropriate without being notable. He walked to the security desk and spoke to the guard there, a man named Kevin who had been at this desk for 3 years and was good at his job. The man with the portfolio signed something on Kevin's clipboard. Kevin handed him a visitor badge. The man took the badge, clipped it to his lapel, and turned toward the elevator bank. He turned wrong. It was a small thing. He turned left first, then corrected to the right. Left was the emergency exit stairwell. A person who had never been in this building and was trying to locate the elevators would turn right, because the directory board on the right-facing wall made the elevator location obvious from the door. A person who had looked at a building diagram before arriving might pause, because a diagram gives you spatial logic but not spatial feel. A person who had already been here and was trying to appear as if they had not would turn toward the thing they already knew was there, then catch themselves. I watched him cross to the elevator. I watched him press 14. I watched the elevator doors close. I did not run. I walked to the house phone on the pillar near the supply closet and called the building's security desk extension, which was not the number most people in the building knew. I had memorized it on my first week because it was the internal line, and internal lines in any facility are the ones that reach a person instead of a queue. Donna answered. I gave her the visitor badge number the man had been assigned, a physical description, the floor he was heading to, and 3 behavioral observations. I spoke for 40 seconds. I asked her to relay to Kevin and to contact the 14th floor receptionist to hold the man at the desk without indicating why. Then I set the phone down and went back to the supply closet. There are 2 things a person can do when they see something wrong. They can make noise about it in a way that creates chaos faster than the problem can be solved, or they can place the right information with the right people and let the system do the thing it was designed to do. I had spent 16 years learning which of those 2 approaches actually produced results. The answer was consistent. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. I was in the supply closet for 7 minutes before Kevin's voice came over the building intercom asking for a security check on 14. Standard language, no urgency in the tone, the phrasing we used when we needed someone to move without alerting the room that something was moving. 2 officers from the district came through the revolving doors at 2:51. They had been close, likely the unit that ran Adams and Franklin at midday. Kevin met them at the desk, spoke briefly, and they went to the elevator. They were professional, and they moved well, and they had the portable radio communication that meant they had already been briefed on what to expect. The man from the lobby was apprehended at the 14th floor reception desk at 2:54. His portfolio contained a digital recorder and a document that the officers later described in their report as a fraudulent authorization instrument. I did not know the specifics at the time. What I knew at the time was that the elevator chime for 14 came twice in quick succession and then did not chime again for 5 minutes, which was longer than a standard passenger drop-off, and which meant something had been resolved in a contained way. I was back at the Polisher when Commissioner Raymond Gaines came through the lobby doors at 3:02. I had not known he would be there. I learned later that Ashford Capital was a co-sponsor of a community banking safety forum that had been running in the second-floor conference center since noon. It was the kind of event that ended in the early afternoon and was followed by the kind of informal lobby conversation that happened when 60 people who worked adjacent to the same problems tried to figure out what to do about them. Gaines had been in the conference room since 1:30. He was coming through the lobby now because the event had ended and he was heading toward the exit. He had 4 officers with him. He was 58 years old and had the particular physical presence of a man who had spent decades in rooms that required a certain kind of authority and had eventually stopped needing to perform it. His hair was fully gray. He moved through the lobby without urgency or display, the way people move when they have nothing left to prove about how they move. He was 12 feet from the revolving door when he looked across the lobby. He stopped, not the slow stop of someone noticing something, the immediate stop of someone seeing something they were not prepared to see. He said my name, not a greeting, not an announcement, just the name, the way it gets said when the person who holds it is the last person you expected to find in this particular room. Marcus. I looked up from the polisher. I had not seen Raymond Gaines in 3 years and 4 months, which was the last time I had been anywhere near a precinct, and that had been a brief errand, in and out, the kind of visit designed not to require conversation. Commissioner, I said. He crossed the lobby. He did not look at the polisher or the gray uniform or the Precision Facility Services badge. He looked at my face with the focused attention of a man running an inventory. How long have you been here? He said. 14 months. He was quiet for a moment. The 4 officers with him had stopped behind him, reading the situation with the professional patience of people who knew better than to speak when the commissioner had gone still. The elevator opened. Claire Ashford stepped out. She had come down when her assistant Priya called up to tell her that there had been a security incident on the 14th floor and that the situation had been resolved and that there were police in the lobby she might want to speak with. She walked toward the security desk, and then she saw Gaines standing in the center of the lobby, and she saw that he was not looking at the officers or at Kevin or at anything that would explain why the commissioner of the Chicago Police Department was standing in her lobby with the expression of a man who had just been handed a piece of information he needed time to process. He was looking at the man in the gray maintenance uniform holding a floor polisher by the handle near the supply closet. One of Gaines's officers, a woman named Lieutenant Chun who had been with the department for 12 years, stepped up beside him. She said quietly, "Sir, building security says the call that flagged the incident on 14 came from a house phone on the lobby level. A member of the cleaning crew." Gaines did not look at her. He was still looking at me. He said, "Describe the member of the cleaning crew." Chun described me. Height, approximate age, gray uniform. Gaines said, "The caller. Did they get a name?" Chun checked her radio. She said, "No name. 40-second call. Very specific. Visitor badge number, floor, behavioral indicators." The 14th floor receptionist said she received a relay from building management that she described as the clearest threat identification she had ever been given. She said it included the precise seat the man would likely take and the specific question he would ask to determine which partner he needed to get to. Gaines turned and looked at me fully for the first time since he had crossed the lobby. He said nothing for a moment. The lobby had the specific quiet of a large space where several people have all arrived at the same thought at the same time. Claire was standing 8 feet away. She had heard all of it. Gaines turned to her and said, "Ms. Ashford, Marcus Webb spent 16 years in the major crimes unit of this department. He cleared 94% of the cases he was assigned. He was the lead on the Cabrini commercial fraud case in 2014, which recovered $4.2 million in client assets and put 4 people in federal custody. He resigned from the department in 2020 with a commendation record that I have not seen matched since. He left to raise his daughter. I have been trying to find a way to bring him back for 3 years." He stopped. He looked at me again. "I heard you called the police on him last week," he said. Claire Ashford did not say anything. She was looking at me. She had the expression of someone watching a landscape they thought they had memorized rearrange itself into something entirely different, something they could not immediately name. I set the polisher against the supply closet door. I said to Gaines, "The man on 14 had a fraudulent authorization instrument targeting one of the accounts on this floor. Your team will want to pull the building entry logs from the past 30 days. He didn't pick this building at random." Gaines looked at me for one long moment. Then he turned to Chun and said, "Pull the logs." He said it with the voice of a man who had spent a long time waiting to say something reasonable in the direction of Marcus Webb and was going to say as many reasonable things in that direction as the afternoon allowed. I picked up the polisher. The lobby clock above the security desk read 3:11, which by the building's fast clock made it 3:07, which meant I had 43 minutes left in my shift. I went back to the service corridor and finished the floor. Claire Ashford did not go home that evening until 9:30. She told Priya to cancel her dinner, closed the door to her office, and sat at her desk with the city behind her and a legal pad in front of her that she did not write anything on for a long time. She had built this company on accurate reads. She had taken over a grieving organization at 35 and made it profitable by understanding people better than they expected to be understood. She had looked at Marcus Webb 60 times across 14 months and had seen a man in a gray uniform and had stopped looking. She had called the police on him. She had used the word lurking in front of her board, in front of people whose opinions of her she actively managed, and she had done it with the confidence of someone reporting a fact. She stayed at her desk until the cleaning crew came through at 8:15. She heard the cart in the corridor. She heard the familiar rhythm of the work. She did not go out. That night, when she got to her apartment, she looked up the Cabrini commercial fraud case. The news coverage from 2014 was specific. For dollars, $2 million recovered. For convictions, the detective named in the leading paragraph was described as having identified the fraud mechanism through behavioral pattern analysis during what had initially been logged as a routine follow-up call. The journalist had clearly not fully understood what that meant and had moved on. Marcus had not given a quote. There was a photograph from outside the federal building, a group of officers, and he was at the edge of the frame, already turned slightly away from the camera, the way a person turns who has no interest in being the image. She read it twice. She closed her laptop. She did not sleep well. The following morning, she came in at 7:45, 15 minutes earlier than usual, and she went to the building management office on the 8th floor before she went to her own. Donna looked up when she came in. The expression on Donna's face was the expression of a woman who has watched a situation develop from the beginning and is now watching the person who caused it arrive to do something about it. "I want to know his schedule," Claire said. "When he comes in today?" Donna told her. "Afternoon shift. 1 p.m. Claire said thank you. She went upstairs. At 12:58, she came back down. She was wearing a plain blazer, no structured shoulders, and she had left her phone on her desk, which was a thing she almost never did. She stood near the lobby security station and waited. Marcus came through the service entrance at 1:03. He had his cart with him and his badge and the same gray uniform, and the same unhurried way of moving that she now understood was not indifference to the space around him. It was the opposite of that. He saw her standing there and stopped. "Mr. Webb," she said. He looked at her. He did not look surprised. He had the quality, she was beginning to understand, of a man who is rarely surprised, not because he is incurious, but because he pays close enough attention that the world tends to arrive at the pace he already anticipated. "I owe you an apology," she said, "for the call I made, and for what I said to my board after it." She paused. "The word I used was not accurate, and it was not fair, and I said it in front of people, which made it worse." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He was looking at her with the focused, neutral attention that she had initially read as blankness and now recognized as the opposite. He was listening in the specific way of a person who does not respond before they have finished hearing. "I appreciate that," he said. She had expected something harder to receive. The directness of the acceptance caught her off balance. She pressed on. "Commissioner Gaines told me you identified the threat from a 40-second observation in the lobby, that you called it in through internal channels before anyone else had flagged anything." She stopped. "You protected my clients and my people, and the week before that I had called the police on you for cleaning a hallway." He did not fill the silence. He let it sit there between them at its actual size. "You had the information you had," he said. "People make decisions from the information they have. The problem was the information, not you." She looked at him. "That's a generous read. It's the accurate one." He said it without emphasis, because it was simply true and he did not need her to believe it more than that. He adjusted his grip on the cart handle. "If you're looking to do something with the apology, talk to Donna about the contractor vetting process. The Precision Facility Services background review is 2 years out of date. She's been flagging it." He moved toward the service corridor. She said, "Your daughter." He turned. "Your daughter called during Gaines's debrief yesterday. Priya said you stepped out to answer." She hesitated. "I heard you talking to her before the door closed. Just the end of it. You said you'd be home by 4. He waited. "How old is she?" 9, he said. Claire nodded. She looked at the floor, then back up. "My father ran this company for 23 years. He had a stroke when I was 35, and I came back from New York in 48 hours, and I have been in this building most days since." She stopped. "I never asked him enough about how he made the decisions he made. I ran meetings while he was in the hospital. I thought that was what he needed from me." The company continuing. She said the last part with the evenness of a person who has had 4 years to examine a choice, and still has not fully closed the question. Marcus said nothing for a moment. Then, is he still alive? Yes. She looked at him. He was not going to tell her what to do with that information. He was not going to give her the clean resolution of a person who had been given enough time to grieve and had come out the other side with a lesson shaped for delivery. He had simply asked the question that changed the shape of the room. She said, "You left one of the best careers in this department to raise your daughter." "I left a career I was good at to do work I couldn't hand off," he said. "There's a difference." She looked at him for a long moment. He held the look without performance. "What made you call Gaines's team with the follow-up lead?" she said. "Yesterday. After everything. You could have walked out. You cleared your shift and came back with more." "Because the case mattered," he said. "Whether he knew my name or not. Whether you knew my name or not." He paused. "That's the part you don't do for recognition. You do it because the alternative is a client in this building losing money they trusted someone to protect, and I was standing in the lobby when I could see exactly how it was going to happen." He looked at her directly. "The uniform doesn't change what I can see." She was quiet. Below them, through the floor, the city made its ordinary sounds. She said, "If you ever want a different kind of work here, not as charity, as someone this building needs and hasn't had the sense to identify properly until now." He said, "I'll think about it." She accepted that without pushing, which was the right response, and something in the way she accepted it told him she had learned that from somewhere hard. He went to work. He picked Maya up at 3:29. She was the third kid out of the gate, which meant her teacher had let her line up early, which meant the presentation had gone exactly as Maya had predicted it would. She got in the car and buckled her seatbelt and reached into her backpack and produced a folded piece of paper and put it on the dashboard without saying anything. He opened it while she buckled. It was a grading sheet. At the top, in red pen, her teacher had written, "Exceptional historical analysis. Strongest in the class." "Did anything interesting happen today?" Maya said. He pulled out of the pickup line. He thought about the lobby. He thought about Gaines saying his name across 30 feet of marble floor. He thought about Claire Ashford sitting with a legal pad she hadn't written on and deciding to come downstairs anyway. Something got seen that had been there a long time, he said. Maya considered this with the left-tilted head. "That happens," she said. He looked at her. "When did you get so reasonable?" "I've always been reasonable," she said. "You just don't always notice." He drove them home. That evening, after dinner, while Maya was doing homework at the table and narrating under her breath the argument she was constructing for a social studies question, Marcus went to the hall closet and took out the metal box and put it on the kitchen counter. He opened it. The commendation certificate in its plastic sleeve. The photograph of 6 people in front of a precinct. Denise's grocery list. The badge. He looked at the badge for a while. He did not put it on. He did not need to put it on to know it still fit. He closed the box and put it back and left the closet door open by 2 inches, which was different from closed. He sat down across from Maya at the table. She looked up. "One of the kittens needs a name," she said. "I saved one for you." He said, "What are the other ones called?" She listed them. The names were specific and slightly illogical and completely her. He listened to all of them. He said, "Call the last one Raymond." She looked at him. "That's a person's name." "Yes." She thought about it with the full seriousness she brought to decisions that would last. Then she nodded once. "Okay." She went back to her worksheet. Outside, the November wind moved between the buildings the way it always did, finding the open places and passing through them without stopping. Inside the kitchen, the light was the warm, specific light of an evening that was ordinary and chosen and enough. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.